At the end of the lab, you're going to find a small section on fogs. We are going to look at 3 of the types of fogs that are found in California. They're found over fairly large, substantial areas, which is why I'm focusing on these 3. They are advection fog, radiation fog, and upslope fog. What is fog? Well, fog is just a mass of suspended water droplets that forms a cloud that's in contact with the ground. That's it. Fog is just a cloud that's touching the ground. In the sky, it's a cloud. On the ground, it's a fog. Okay, advection fog is the place to start. This is fog produced by the movement of relatively warm, moist air across a cold sea or ground surface. In the case of California, this is going to be a cold sea surface, in other words, the ocean. This is our coastal fog in California, but coastal fog is a vernacular name for this. I want you to know the scientific name, which is advection fog. California is washed by a cold water current that comes from the north. The latitude of the state causes the water offshore to be warmer than the water that's right along our coastline, because along our coastline, the current is coming down from Alaska. Whereas Los Angeles, for example, is at 34 degrees north. It's much closer to the equator than it is to the North Pole. Because of that, here's what happens. Take a look at the state of California. We have this cold water current that comes down from Alaska and flows south along the west coast. But directly offshore, 50, 75, 100, 200 miles offshore, the water is significantly warmer. 4, 6, 8, even 10 degrees warmer out there, more reflective of our latitude. But because this cold water current comes down, it's going to impact our coastal environment. We sit normally under a westerly wind flow. Because of the previous lab, you know that means the air blows from the west. The air takes on the characteristics of what it's over. So offshore, there's warm water. That means that the air becomes both warm and wet because it absorbs moisture and takes on that heat characteristic of that offshore environment. And then as those black arrows indicate, that warm, wet air moves towards the coastline and crosses that cold water current. When it crosses the cold water current, guess what's going to happen? Air temperature drops, and when air temperature goes down, relative humidity goes up. If the relative humidity reaches 100%, advection fog is formed. This is an advection fog that's along the coast of Malibu. If you look out here in the open ocean, you can see it's relatively clear. But as the air moves towards the shoreline, it crosses the current, and when it crosses the current, it condenses, making advection fog. I was driving home from Pismo Beach, California, not long ago, and as I was driving along the 101 headed south, you could see there that there was an advection fog coming right off the ocean and crossing Highway 101. Remarkable. The second one is radiation fog. This is fog produced by the cooling of air in contact with a cold ground surface. This occurs on long, cold, clear, calm nights. It's generally associated with low-level inversions. And in California, we often refer to this as valley fog or tule fog, but again, these are vernacular terms. The technical scientific name is radiation fog. One of the ways this can form is like this. At higher elevations, especially at night, it gets very cold. Cold air subsides. Then that cold air subsides down from the mountains, settles on a valley floor, and especially if there's a water source, whether that's a river or vegetation, what happens is that raises the specific humidity. The cold air cannot hold a lot of water. That cold air settles over the valley floor, absorbs that moisture, and condenses, making a fog. Notice if we look at the state of California, we have the Sierra Nevada along the eastern part of the state, the highest mountain range of the contiguous 48 states, and the longest mountain range in California. And then in the middle of the state, we have the Central Valley, which is made up of the Sacramento and San Joaquin valleys. And then along the coast, we have the coastal ranges. So we have mountain ranges on two sides, the west and the east, and then we have a valley that sits in between them. Can you see what's going to happen? Especially during the winter, the Sierra Nevada gets a lot of snow. It's famous for skiing in some places. Snow is cold. And what happens is cold air descends from the Sierra Nevada and the coastal ranges into the Central Valley. Then in the Central Valley, there's a lot of vegetation and agriculture, and the air's warmer down there. So what happens is that cold air settles on the valley floor, which pushes the warmer air up. That's the inversion layer. And that cold air absorbs moisture from the vegetation through transpiration and from whatever rivers are running through there through evaporation. It condenses and it makes the valley fog or the radiation fog. There you can see a beautiful shot of this in the Merced River Valley coming down out of Yosemite. Look at that fog there. The third one, upslope fog, is fog produced by the movement of relatively moist air upwards along the sides of a mountain. As the air rises, it cools on the way up. Cooling air means relative humidity is going up. And as relative humidity continues to increase, it may very well reach saturation, 100% relative humidity, and begin to condense, making a fog. You can see it happening right here. The air was rising along the sides of the mountain, and you can see the cloud forming. That's an upslope fog. And you can see right here also where the air is rising along the slopes of these mountains, making another upslope fog. I would advise you to read the section on the fogs after having watched this so you connect all the dots so you can answer the questions appropriately. And where these fogs, advection, radiation, and upslope fog, form in the state of California.